Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the commission to order. First item of business would be the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, next item is public comment. The commission requests that comments be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes for each person. The first person we have on the list is Phil Irby.
Mayor, I won't take up too much of your time. I'm Phil Irby, a resident of 235 West Spruce here in Junction City, past state commander of the Veterans of Foreign War. I used to be in charge of the whole state. I'm here to invite you to our state convention that's going to be held at the Courtyard by Marriott on the 12th through the 14th of June. And at 1 o'clock, we would like you to come in and give us a 5-minute welcoming. It's going to be over 200 to 300 combat veterans from west of Oakley all the way to the east of Lawrence and Lenexa, Wichita. And we all gather to work our programs out and to recognize the people that work the chairmanships during the following year. So as far as law enforcement, youth activities, teachers awards, and supporting active duty military. So we'd like you to come out there about 1 p.m. We don't want to take no more than about 5 minutes of your time.
Okay, we will be represented.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave a convention book here so you see what goes on in the convention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next public comment, be Mr. William Clark.
Mr. Mayor, I can defer my comments till we get to the new business part that you want me to.
Well, generally, we do the speaking and public comment, and if there's questions, then we'll open it up for further questions.
Is it part of the agenda item?
Yes, sir.
He has the agenda.
A
Site
under
plan, yes.
Okay, so
You want to do it then?
whichever.
try and
you
make
prefer.
more sense.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
more sense there, yeah.
Okay, that'd be fine. I've been corrected. Again.
Sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
My time's coming.
You're in training.
Yes, as Commissioner Fitzgerald said, I'm still in training.
So am I.
Oh, no.
Okay, and then there was a possibility of Joy. Did you want to? Miss Davis, I'm sorry.
I'm Joy Davis, and I'm here tonight representing, I'm a board member for Pawnee Mental Health Association. And due to a little miscommunication last month, I didn't get in here in time to proclaim May as the Mental Health Month, the National Mental Health Month. But just because it's June doesn't mean that mental health issues have gone away. In fact, they're very prevalent in our state and all over the world. Just to give you a few statistics, in the area that Pawnee Mental Health Services, which is 10 counties, there were over 4,500 individuals that were seen in the office for individual, marital, family, or group therapy services in the past year. 1,000 of those were Geary County residents, approximately. And there were another kind of big statistic, I think, or number is almost 1,000 individuals were seen for crisis intervention services in our hospitals and jails and nursing facilities. And that's one of the big crises right now, is that so many of our people who are suffering with mental illnesses actually do end up in jail because our state hospitals are no longer available to to them to service them, or not as many of them as they used to, the state hospital in Kansas City. So it's a good thing to remember that mental health affects everyone. All of us in some way have probably dealt with some mental health issues and needed some counseling, maybe to feel fulfilled and well again. It's a very important need in our state and in our country, and it's important that we remember it and recognize Pawnee Mental Health's excellent work. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I do want to point out then that item C, as we discussed in the land bank meeting, consideration of assessments of certified Garrett County for collection would be the issues with the land bank parcels. So our city treasurer this year is asking you to assess all of the properties for special assessments except for the land bank specials, which we are deferring. And then as per land bank rules, you are allowed to defer until you resell the property. And so I wanted that of the record so that you note that in the record that it does not include the land bank land parcels for special assessments.
They're deferred at this time.
Yes, the amount that is stated there does not include the land bank land.
Okay. Further comment?
None here.
I move to approve the consent agenda as described.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
None here.
All those approve, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Before we get into new business, we have an item added. It will be the proclamation for Juneteenth. Do we have a representative? All right, I forgot to put the jacket on. I'm out of uniform. Yes, I'm still in training.
I did not notice. I'm a bad vice mayor.
Okay. Juneteenth, whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1, 1863, formally abolishing slavery in the United States of America. And whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation was delayed some 2.5 years to June 19, 1865, in reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and Southwestern United States, and whereas Emancipation Day observations are held different days in different states in the South and Southwest and in other parts of the nation, and whereas June 19th has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth, combining the words June and 19th, and has been celebrated by African American community for over 125 years. Now, therefore, I urge all citizens to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in African American history and our heritage of our nation and city. Juneteenth will be celebrated June 2015. I didn't say the day. In Junction City, Garrett County, Kansas. In witness thereof, I, Mick McAllister, Mayor of the City of Junction City, have hereto and set my hand and caused the great seal of the City of Junction City to be affixed to this second day of June 2015. Pen. Thank you. Okay. Now we'll move on to new business. And the first item is consideration of case number SPR 050115, request of USD 475 for site plan approval for proposed building additions at Westwood and Franklin Elementary Schools in Junction City, Kansas. Mr. Yura.
Mayor and Commissioners, the Planning Commission held a special meeting on the 22nd of September to review the site plans of the proposed building additions at Westwood and Franklin Elementary Schools. Brief background, in 2013, the zoning regulations for Junction City were modified, and all schools and churches were removed out of its use by right in residential districts and moved into a category called a special use permit. What it requires, and they were all granted, all the existing schools and churches were granted that status. What it requires, though, is a site plan approval to deal with any modifications or additions to those buildings different than what exists at this time. This is the first time the school project has come through the building program that was submitted to the city a year ago. Did not really entail any building additions within the jurisdiction of the city. Dealt primarily with air conditioning, re-roofing, other structural improvements, but not an actual addition. These two, however, do trigger, and the school district was notified that we would have to go through a formal site plan approval process, which is required to put on record before any building additions move forward. The regulations set out that the Planning Commission is to review and provide comments. They did that at the special meeting on the 22nd. And then it takes final approval by the governing body before we're in a position to be able to issue building permits. And that's where we are right now. There are building plans in that have been submitted to the building department, and initial plan review has commenced on that. And there is work underway with respect to the building additions. Site plan approval, though, takes governing body approval, and that's why we're here tonight. Planning Commission's recommendation to you was to recommend approval of the site plans as submitted. The minutes I provided to you from that special meeting, there were concerns that were raised primarily with respect to the impacts that our schools have with, particularly during the times of dropping off and picking up students. Also, just the general traffic issues that exist around the schools, which ironically was discussed a month ago at this commission meeting. The recommendation of the Planning Commission is for approval with two conditions. One, they would want an assurance from the school district that these are not going to trigger any staff additions to either one of these schools, because under the current regulations, there are a certain minimum number of off-street parking spaces that have to be provided, and particularly at Westwood Elementary, most of those parking stalls that are along Eisenhower are not considered off-street. Those are on-street parking stalls. There are other stalls off-street, but we don't have the actual staffing count, and that's the criteria in the zoning regulations that's used to determine the parking needs. But the Planning Commission was concerned that none of these building additions would entail actual additions to staff, which could just compound parking issues. The second was a recommendation and a desire, and that is primarily to have communication brought forward to the city from the school district with respect to the traffic issues around all the elementary schools and what, if anything, they have planned to try to help alleviate those concerns, driven a little bit by the comments a month ago that Commissioner Ryan initiated, but that internally has been discussed by city staff, even with the police chief, about the fact that, yes, we're aware, and it's not all day, but it is a period of time in the morning and the afternoon when it does cause some pretty traumatic issues around the schools. Ironically, I did hear this morning the superintendent on your town actually talk about that very issue in response to a question of someone that called in asking about parking issues, and would address really probably the long-term need the school district, particularly in light of how our zoning regulations are now structured. That the discussion the superintendent indicated was that there is a six-year facilities master plan the school district has addressing all these facilities that they have within the community. And the belief that I would share with you is that part of the idea behind the plan review process is to provide that communication to the city and also to the general public of what's going on, and would encourage that they bring that forward and work that through the process. So one, we don't get into issues like this at the 11th hour, waiting on a building permit and having to take this process. But more importantly, it gives the ability for the city and all the affected departments that deal with providing services to integrate and provide input into what needs to be done and what might be done in the future to help alleviate those concerns. With that, the recommendation coming forward is to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission to the degree you want to incorporate their recommendations with particular the staffing concerns and also the future plans. That's up to the board. But we did act as responsively as we could. We're aware, and I note that in our staff report, that I'm not sure the school district was fully aware of this requirement before they move forward with their building plans. When they were notified about this need, there was a lot of concern expressed about the fact that, they're working on a time period of trying to get this work done before school starts in August. And so any delay was just going to compound significantly the problems. And that's why the Planning Commission agreed to hold a special meeting. Their normal meeting would not be until Thursday of next week. But they did agree to hold a special meeting to address this concern, and we moved forward just as rapidly as we could. That gave the ability to get this in front of the City Commission at your first available meeting. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have of the process or how we got to where we are tonight. I do have larger copies. I don't have enough for everybody, but I'll pass them around of the site plans, and probably a little easier to see those than it is to what you got on the computer. But
I blew it up big. I looked at your parking spaces and everything, and what you did doesn't infringe on any of the parking. So I didn't see a problem with it.
Well, the dynamic that's changed with grade schools or any school with parents taking and picking up every kid nowadays, just about no more kid walking to school anymore. Wasn't thought about 50, 60 years ago.
Oh, no.
Everybody assumed it would be the same, and so it's pretty tough to go back and move a structure over 20 feet. So I think you have to work with what you have, and may come a day where you may have to buy some houses around you to do any other change, but either that or you start over somewhere else. So,
yeah, we're fully aware that, today,
Sure.
people that live half a block away will drive their kids to school just because that's what they do. And we can't change how people work in society, but, and true, back in the day when many of these schools were built, you're going back into the 50s and the 60s, where the theory was you put a neighborhood school in and everybody walks to school.
right.
And that's what solidifies and makes that neighborhood very meaningful. But society's changed significantly. So, and I do think, the school district's aware of that. Look what the design of what they did at Spring Valley Elementary is much more conducive to a modern society.
Correct.
Which,
Yep, I agree.
if we were building new schools, probably would be a part of what was going on. But that retrofitting existing ones is a little
Too
tough.
tough, yep.
On paragraph 2, it talks about to approve subject to conditions, and paragraph 2 requires a plan or a report on what would like to be done. So is that a report, or is that a set of plans that's going to be submitted?
The desire of the Planning Commission was to see some kind of a report come from the school district of what they have in mind in the future of trying to address other additions and modifications around the schools, and what, if anything, might be done with respect to how they would mitigate traffic impacts surrounding those schools. They were looking for something definitive. And my take, and this is me thinking out loud again, gets me in trouble, but is the superintendent indicated there is a 6-year plan that the school district has for the facilities. Would like to believe that that's addressing, and he said on the radio anyway, that within that document, they address issues with respect to parking and the impacts that are associated with dropping off and picking up students and bus stopping and other things that go on. And that may well suffice what the Planning Commission had in mind of what they were after.
Maybe Mr. Clark could shed a little more light on it?
Good evening, everybody.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bill Clark. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the district. So thank you for letting me come and talk to you. First thing is to David, where do you go, and your team, thanks for holding a special meeting. We appreciate the sense of urgency the city had to help us with this. So David was right. Just this past January, our Board of Education approved a 6-year master facilities plan that encompassed everything from safety and security to infrastructure to our fields, to our kitchens. Everything's in one master plan, and that we're working from to allocate funds as we go forward. And inside of that, under the infrastructure piece, we do address parking lots within that. And this year, for example, we're actually adding 3 parking lots as part of our summer work. One's at Lincoln Elementary. The other one's at the early childhood complex out there where the Haig-Heim complex is at. And the third one is on Fort Riley itself at Morris Hill Elementary. And so there is a systematic approach to adding parking lots based upon what we assessed was the need, the largest traffic problems. In other words, where our staff exceeded parking capacity. And we'll continue to refine that as we go forward. And so that piece is in there. To address a couple of the topics that David mentioned is, first of all, we are not increasing capacity of the building. We're adding no more students or staff. What we're really doing is addressing 2 things. Number one is the safety and security of both those buildings. Franklin, for example, does not have a controlled entrance. If you go over to Washington Elementary, for example, it has a controlled entrance where the staff can control who comes in and who goes out. That does not exist. So to create that at Franklin, we have to modify the office, which modifies the music room, which then requires the addition that you see before you of a new music room just to the north end of that building. With that, we'll also be adding a new playground. And then what we learned this year is it gives us the opportunity then to add a staff parking lot in the following years where the current playground is at. We just can't do it all in 1 year. Over at Westwood, what we have right now is we have what we call 8 specialty teachers, ELL, ESS, for example, who are operating out of 1 room. By adding that addition allows us to spread them out to provide a better learning environment for students. Additionally, the addition at Westwood becomes the FEMA shelter. We're going to reinforce it. So in case there is an emergency of bad weather, there's a place for them to go.
Okay.
I believe that David brings up a good point. As we refine the 6-year plan, we will bring that to the city in the future. As you mentioned, we were unaware of the ordinance, but I think it's only proper and fitting that we share with you where the school district sees us going over the next few years as well, and we'll do that.
Okay. And you'll take into consideration drop-off, pickup, some of those modifications of being able to increase or gain better flow?
Absolutely. That was the reason for the first 3 this year. Between Lincoln, the Early Childhood Center, and Morris Hill, we have significant challenges with that flow issue of drop-off and pickup. It really stemmed from because we had more staff than parking spaces. We were parking on the street, and so we're looking at across the district. We're just tackling those 3 this year because we saw those the biggest need right now.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Nothing here.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. What is the will of the commission?
I move to make a recommendation for the Metropolitan Planning Commission be accepted and that the site plan for the proposed building additions to Westwood and Franklin Elementary Schools be approved, subject to the conditions as stated in the recommendations of the Metropolitan Planning Commission for the reasons given on the record of the MPC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
None here.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And Mr. Clark, we look forward to seeing you at the joint meetings. You're always invited.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of request for street closing for the Juneteenth celebration event on June 13th, 2015 in Heritage Park.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. I come before you tonight reference to a request from the Juneteenth Association requesting a street closure for the Juneteenth celebration, which will occur on June 13th, 2015, from approximately 11 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. This celebration is in conjunction with an Arts Council project and also with a Merchants Association project that have all been brought before the Commission previously. This request is asking for the 100 block of West Fifth Street to be blocked off. It would require barricades to be placed there by Public Works. There would be some minimal costs for them to drop those barricades off and then pick them up on Monday, drop them off Friday, pick them up Monday. But the Juneteenth personnel will be the ones actually placing them out there that morning, so city staff won't have to do it. In addition, I'm requesting a noise waiver. They did not request a noise waiver, but I am going to go ahead and request a noise waiver for them. And add that. There is no impact on the budget, and we are asking for approval of this. We did have an issue a couple years back when a citizen was walking on Fifth Street in the street and was struck by a car. So I think this is very prudent that we go ahead and make sure that that street's closed down to give them that little bit of leeway there. So
Absolutely.
I ask for your approval in this matter, please.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the street closure for the Juneteenth celebration on June the 13th, with the addition of Chief Brown adding the noise waiver as well.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Next on the agenda is a status report of the structure located at 119 East 11th Street.
And KIT guy.
I think it's warming.
30 seconds.
It's in training as well.
You're supposed to tap dance for 30 seconds.
Patience is a virtue.
That's not happening. I will on the way out. At the last meeting and the last discussion with this property, Ava Dale, the owner, was granted more time to try and get it dried in, as we spoke of in the last meeting. As you know, there's been rain days, there's been lots of issues. I went and took these pictures today at 3:30, and I also just went back by there at about 20 till, and there were 3 people up on the roof trying to get the siding and the house wraps all the way around. The roof is on, but they still have drip edge on the roof to put on. The rest, that's the rear, and they have that left on there, and the same also. It's all now at the same level. There's about 3 feet, well, probably less than that as we speak. I don't know what the commission's will would be on this issue. I mean, they are really, really close. If they had this last weekend and it wasn't raining, they probably would have gotten it dried in as you requested. I don't know which direction you would like to go, but I would recommend that we've gone this far, and I can turn right around when I leave here or tomorrow morning, take pictures again of where they're at and forward that. What is the will of the commission on this project? And Mrs. Dale is here. And like I said, when I drove by again, there were 2 of them up on the roof and one a cut guy down on the ground. So they are feverishly working on
So
this.
significant progress has been made, even with the horrible month of rain that we've had.
Yes, sir.
That's a good,
That's my
that's a good
point.
thing.
And honestly, I would have to take pictures again tonight because I don't know how much farther they got. There's only 2 of them there up on and they don't have scaffolding and everything like everybody would on their big commercial. Well, you have. We won't talk about that so OSHA doesn't show up. Going with what you have, put it that way.
Mrs. Dale, would you take a few minutes and tell us where you're at?
Step up here, please. Thank you.
Right now, my sons are working. And we had rain days, and my son, as I said before, I can't afford to pay anyone to do it. And he does construction work. And he's the one that, been doing the work whenever he gets off work and the weekends and every chance that he gets. For the past 3 days, he have not been to work because he's working on the house. I don't sleep. I'm so stressed out. But they're there now, and it should be up another level higher because when he came by this morning, it was so much rain, nobody couldn't do anything. And so they're there now still working on it when I left here. So it should be up, more level than what it is now. So if I just get one weekend, I promise you, if it's not done by Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, you can take the bulldozer it down. No, I am serious. It's this much close to be done. And so tomorrow, if there's anything that we need to get, I'm gonna get it tomorrow. And so after this weekend, you shouldn't see my face again. Unless we have another issue.
I might also add that when I came back around this evening, all the house wrap was all the way up. All the windows are in except for the front one that you
Yeah,
see.
just that one.
Just that window. So all the windows are now in place.
But it's dried in
Yes.
Close.
It's dried in to where, yes, we shouldn't have.
with the
any-
house wrap.
Yes, we shouldn't have any damage now. And that's what I was afraid of, do all this work and not have house wrap.
Still
in there.
have an additional issue here. You have a structure that the commission, I'm assuming last fall, declared as unsafe or dangerous, unfit for human use or habitation. At what point is the commission going to be, where do you want to be for having it resolved? And I think that's the question that becomes important, is because just doing this and meeting this deadline still does not solve what you put in place last October, November, whenever you had the ordinance in place, or resolution in place, resolution declaring this as a dangerous, unsafe or dangerous structure, fit for human use or habitation. And so, you need to maybe have that discussion, and where do you want to go or where's the commission want to go? Or you simply can say, it's not unsafe or dangerous anymore, we're done. I mean, you've got that option. I am not sure I'd advise that, but that's an option you have.
I think this one was a nuisance, wasn't it, or was it unsafe?
It was just began as a fire job, and yes.
That's right, it was unsafe,
and-
that's right. Yeah.
No insurance on it, so they've done it all from their own means, so that's how it started, it's that, and then finally we had to address it because it was becoming an issue.
Ma'am, do you have any insurance liability for people to actually come and help you? Because the folks that had come over to volunteer, I think you had a group of soldiers and the Reaching Hands organization, and they could not work on the structure because there was no liability. So if a soldier got hurt, it would be out of his pocket to pay for that. Is there a way that you can get insurance so you can get some help?
Number one is, when I first called Helping Hands, the guy came by and he called someone else, and they all look at the house, and he said yes, he's gonna take the project, and he had people to do it and all that. He never explained or said anything about any insurance. I did not hear from him in 3 days. On the 4th day, I called him. And when I called him, he just came up with it and said, well, ma'am, I'm sorry, you have to have insurance or else we cannot work. He didn't explain what kind of insurance. If I had insurance, maybe I wouldn't even need Helping Hands. I would have enough money to pay to get everything done. But then he said, I have to have insurance. And I called it 2 insurance company. I didn't know what I was asking for or what I'm supposed to have because he didn't explain anything. And he just said he was waiting on a call about some windows and all that stuff, and he never did call me back. So I called an insurance company, and I said, well, I need insurance on the house. Because my daughter has some kind of insurance. I don't understand what kind of insurance it is, but she recently took it out. And the lady said she would come by and look at the house, and then she would get back with me, but she never did either, because I'm kind of new to all this. And if you're going to tell me to get insurance, kind of like, explain to me what type of insurance I need, how I go about it, or, tell me what the name of the insurance is so I can call the insurance company. So when I called the lady, she said Saturday or Sunday she would send someone by to look at the house, and she would call me back, but she never did.
You just tell them that you need homeowners insurance. There are 30-plus insurance agents in town. I would
Right.
recommend that you call as many as you can to get the best deal.
Okay. And then I want to point out again that the structure that is inside is all new. It's not rot material or anything. We replaced everything inside because a lot of the wood was not good. It was rot and, all that. So we replaced everything inside. So it's all new structures inside.
Mr. Carmen, can you confirm that?
Yeah, all of the char burn materials, lumber, anything that was burnt was removed and replaced. So anything that remained was either smoke damage, and then it's been sprayed with kilts to eliminate the odor and preserve the wood. So But all the fire damage has been removed, but no internal rough-in stuff has started on the project yet.
But once they complete the existing exterior stuff, then it is a safe structure.
Then it's, yes, it would not be declared an
Then it would
unsafe
come off the
structure
list,
as
right.
long as it's secured.
It would have met that
Condition.
criteria,
Exactly.
right?
It would.
At some point, Mr. Corman, aren't you going to issue
Right,
a
an
certificate of
occupancy.
occupancy?
Yeah.
We wouldn't actually issue a certificate of occupancy on this until all
Until all work is
construction is
finished?
completed satisfactory to the codes we have adopted.
Right, but they wouldn't be entitled to occupy it until you
Nope.
issue it.
You could never, you could not occupy this until it was code compliant in every aspect.
Right.
And then they'd get granted a CO to return to the property.
Just wondering, all the rain didn't have any effect on the inside of the property?
All the damage that they would have had would have been from the months before when it was just the OSB on it, no house wrap at all. And what little damage there was there, they removed any sheets of OSB that had puffed out or swelled up because of the rain. So as I requested, and then they understood. So
And my other question would be the roof, the shingles, or is the roof getting shingles on it?
It's
already done?
It's
Okay.
done. It's already done. Both roof, the one in the back, and I brought new shingles, and everything is on.
drip edge is the
It's
only
done.
thing not currently there. But it is covered in felt and it is covered with shingles, asphalt shingles, composition roof.
I would just like a status update in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
I have no issues with that. I could give you one next week and the following week.
So,
Well, I think based on the better than 8 inches of rain that we've had in the last month, I think progress has been made. And I don't think at any time we wanted to see it was able to occupy, but that it was safe for those folks to go inside and perform work. So I don't think we're looking for a certificate of occupancy, but I do want to make sure that we, the city of Junction City, doesn't take any liability to say, continue to work on this for the next couple weeks and give us a status update. I don't think any of us want to take that responsibility.
I agree, and if there were anything here to prevent me from saying that, yeah, there's no issues with this, it is an unsafe structure, I would let you know, but my biggest fear with this type of construction is being unsecured and having kids or people in and around the area that don't belong. And when you have them secured, you have a lot less problems. And like I said, it is secured, all the doors are on. You do secure that one window in the front at night, correct?
Right, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And that will be in by the weekend. I'll have that put in. And that's the only window that is missing. All the doors, everything is intact.
Unfortunately, her concentration or lack of concentration on the home was due to my department. We wrote her a couple blights the weeks before the previous meeting, so she took care of those blights before it became another money issue for her, so.
I would still recommend that you get that homeowner's insurance right away, because that'll protect everything that you've done on it so far. So that's a big deal.
I'll find out from my daughter what type, I think that's a homeowner's insurance. I'm not
Homeowners.
sure.
That's exactly-
She just
that's it.
recently got that when she took out her automobile
That's-
insurance. They
That's
gave her an
exactly what you're looking
insurance.
for, is homeowners.
That's
So,
what you need.
Well,
she
I-
said she was gonna make a copy of it tonight
Good.
when she go to work and give me a copy. So hopefully, I think that's what it is.
Great.
It's some insurance for the
Yes.
house.
Ms. Day, just like Commissioner Landis said, if you call an insurance company and you start to talk to them, they're going to sell you insurance. You just have to tell them what type you want.
Oh, I didn't
Just
know.
stick to your
That's
gun.
the thing.
No, they
'cause-
want to sell. They want to
Yeah,
sell.
but what type would I ask for?
Ask them tell them you're rebuilding your house from a fire damage and you need to have liability at a minimum.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I-
You mean homeowner's insurance.
Homeowner.
Homeowner's
Well, I
insurance.
did tell her that it was burnt down and
Yeah.
we were remodeling it and I needed insurance for it. And she said she would send someone to take pictures and get back with me, but she never
If they don't
did.
come, call the next one. If that one don't come, call the next one.
Maybe the reason why, now that you're talking, maybe the reason why she didn't is because my daughter already have insurance, but I don't know if it's the homeowners. But tonight, when she gets off work, I will make sure of that. And then tomorrow, first thing, I'll give them a call and see.
Okay. Other comments?
No,
Thank you.
What is the will of the commission?
continue working.
Update in 2 weeks.
Update in 2 weeks, right.
Take that in the form of a motion.
I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say the same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you all, and you have
Go
a
on.
blessed night. Thank
You
you.
got an extra helper right there.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, consideration of partial release of modification of right-of-way for Hunter's Ridge property. Ms. Beatty.
Commissioners, in front of you is a corrected page for the front page of that document. But basically, what you have here is the city holds the property on Hunter's Ridge in title only before the IRB. But because it is in our name only for the IRB purposes, anything for amending or taking care of the right-of-way has to come through us, and the property owner and the bank and us all have to sign off on the right-of-way agreement. And basically, what we're asking from you tonight is to go ahead and agree that, and Westar is, yeah, gentleman from Westar is here to represent them, because I cannot speak on his behalf, but if you have any further questions about it, the right-of-way itself, you could ask them. Staff is recommending that you approve the request because it is no interest to us other than that it is in our name.
Is there any further comments, questions from Westar representative?
This is just to grant you an easement across the property.
Come forward,
We have a
sir.
power line that goes,
Come forward, please.
we have a power line that goes on the on the south side of Rutger Road going up 177. And it's a high voltage line that goes up to Fort Riley. And so part of the US 77 Rutger Road intersection project, KDOT bought the area that our power lines are in. So we need to move it south to get it out of the current road right-of-way. We'd need to acquire 2 easements, one of which is from Hunter's Ridge, and they've agreed to it, and the bank in Manhattan has signed off on it. So we just need your approval. And
Okay.
KDOT wants us moved by June 18th. Kind of gave us a short leash, so looks like we're going to make it because we have an agreement with the other property owner. So we're just trying to get out of the road project's way.
Thank you.
There's no other questions. I'd move to approve the request for right-of-way modification as described.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is item E, consideration of grant funds to Junction City Land Bank Fund to provide funds for land bank expenses.
When the land bank was formed last year, we had explained that there would reach a point in which the land bank would incur expenses, and we discussed in brief then about how we could proceed with that. It was determined when I visited with the state of Kansas on budgetary position of the land bank that we should create our own fund. And so within our in-code system, it would be Fund 75, would be the land bank fund, and which then there is no state statute that allows you to transfer funds from the general fund to the land bank. So the request tonight is for you to grant them as a grant to the land bank fund. And we're requesting direction from the city commission for the amount. The recommended amount at this point is $10,000. And we have three options that we would recommend. Take it 100% from the general fund as grant match line item, which now currently has $40,000 in it, or $10,000 grant from the Economic Development Fund, other services, which has approximately $300,000 available in that fund, or a mix of 50% from the general fund and 50% from EDC fund. The logic from EDC is because a land bank is an economic development tool. And so we would like direction from the city commission where if the amount, 10,000, you feel is sufficient or adequate or reduced or would like a reduced amount, and what fund you'd like it to come from.
Well, I had a couple questions on this particular item. I thought that option 2, in my opinion, looked to be the mechanism to fund that because we had dollars in that EDC set aside for those EDC purposes, which I assumed, or my thought was, this met that criteria.
It does.
In addition to that, I was curious about the 300,000 available, approximately 300,000 available. How is that fund funded, and what is the actual amount? I've heard varying differences from the EDC, from a couple 100,000, 225,000, up to 300,000. I was just curious of.
I don't have the exact dollar, but it was $586,000 closeout from the Capgemini project. The city commission, that was brought before the city commission, and I requested where you wanted me to place those monies. So we put $100,000 into the general fund with the intent that that was going to support the idea that Mr. Smith had for the support of the Opera House over the next 3 years for a full-time director, okay, to supplement what we were already giving the Opera House, okay, spread over a 3-year period. So $100,000 was deposited into the general fund for that purpose. The remaining $486,000 was deposited into the Capgemini fund, or the EDC fund for the Capgemini building, now ACCT building, for the purposes of paying for all of the improvements to get that ready, the building ready for ACCT. I don't have on the top of my head what that amounted to, but it was close to $7,500,000 in that range of what we spent to get that building prepared and ready for them to rent it. Okay, so some of that money was spent down for that purposes. We also spent some of that money for improving the building on Old Highway 40 to get prepared for Florence Manufacturing to move in there. We also spent we allocated some of that money, it has not been spent yet, for the improvements on the building at the airport for the Lifestar project. So in total, to give you an exact amount, what that is spent down to, that's why I said approximately 300,000 in my memo. I did not get it down to the specific amount. And if you want me, and I can give you a report later. But I based it on the fact that those monies were available, and that was what's in the line item right now for you to spend for building we had talked about us, and we did spend some of that money. Remember when we did the Tom Neal clearing, the Tom Neal Industrial Park, to clear all of that out? Ed didn't come tonight. Ed spent, I think it was under $5,000 to do all the clearing and the cleanup of the Tom Neal Industrial Park because it was in bad shape. So those are the types of things that we were spending on for the care of our own economic development properties, as well as for future properties. It was our little nest egg for future, if a company comes to town or issues like this that are important to the community for economic development. If a company came to town tomorrow and said, we'll build our manufacturing plant here if you'll make the improvements to intersection so-and-so that our workers can come in to and for, it's for public improvements. And we need a stoplight at that intersection in order for that to happen. that would be your little nest egg to say, okay, I can do that because I have the money to pay for it, and here's my EDC funds to do so. Okay, so it is your money to decide what you consider as economic development for the community, and your money to spend for that purpose. And that's how we asked you to set it aside for, and that's what was the intent of the money to be set aside for.
Okay, well, I appreciate the recap because a lot of time has gone by and I couldn't quite remember where those funds went.
Yes.
And the other question was, how is that bucket funded?
The bucket, the EDC fund itself?
Yeah, the nest egg, how is that funded?
Okay. The EDC, the money was put into the EDC fund, which is a tax levy fund, which by its creation allows you to tax up to 1 mil per year for EDC, okay, for economic development, as per, I think it was an ordinance, right? We looked that up. It was an ordinance. It was an ordinance.
It's half
Okay,
mil from the county, 1 mil
so-
from the city.
Right. It was an ordinance that you created.
Right.
Well, there's a master plan that addresses how the county funds their portion of it. But you committed in an ordinance many, many years ago that 1 mil would be spent for economic development. So the monies that we said that we were going to do for economic development goes into that same fund, and then we cash carry that each year. And in order to keep that so that on a tax levy fund it doesn't dwindle down, we put it as expenditures in the line item or as a budgeted reserve. Okay, and it sits in there right now as an expenditure line item with the 300,000 some odd numbers in there as a,
was 127.5.
yeah, and our contract with
We have a
EDC,
contract with the Chamber of Commerce
which is another issue,
that we give 127.5 a year right now. And that's
Out of that fund?
Out
Yes.
of that, you got the 170.
yes,
some
1
thousand
mil
for 1 mil.
right now is equivalent to about
75. Coming in,
174,000.
You have a contractual obligation to the chamber for 127.5, I think that's the right number. And so the remaining of that is added to the balance.
Okay,
Accumulate.
Accumulates.
it
yeah.
accumulates.
Yeah, accumulates.
If
And
you
we've used
recall,
some-
that was done intentionally.
Exactly. When Mr. Vernon was here.
When Mr. Vernon was here, when we collapsed EDC into a joint operation with the Chamber of Commerce, the purpose of it was the chamber could do it a more efficient and effective way of doing it for a lesser money than we were spending with the way we were doing it.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's why we contracted with the Chamber of Commerce to do economic development on behalf of the city for $127.5, but yet we agreed to still levy the 1 full mil, which is increased now to about approximately 174,000. And the intent there was to always keep that, in addition, that extra dollars available for our nest egg, because it makes you very competitive when you're competing for businesses to come to your town. If we were competing with another city and another city could offer the same thing, except we have a little bit more nest egg than they do, and we can offer a little bit more, and then they choose to come here. So that's why it's important for you to keep your nest egg in economic development funds.
The rent generated from ACCT and then the other place on Old 40, where does that go? Does that go back general fund or does that go back to the EDC?
The rent money on the Cap Gemini building it is in the EDC fund, and this year will be the first year that we will actually, the bond payments have to go against that. This will be the first year we'll actually make more money in the rent than we do than on the bond payout, okay? Because of the bond, or the increase in the rents. It'd be 2016, excuse me, not this year, in 2016 and 17, and thereafter, the rent will be more than the bond payout. Okay? And past, we weren't taking in enough rent, we were paying more in the bond payment than the rent received. The Florence Manufacturing Building, it does not go to the EDC fund because that's in debt service. We still owe money on that building in the debt service fund, and so that rent money goes to debt service.
Okay.
To pay down debt, because we still owe debt on that building.
Okay.
It's wrapped up into one of the general obligation bonds. You always seek, as you do, I didn't find it, you seek where it came from in the first place, and you get it back to that fund. The reason that ACCT building is different than the Lawrence is because it's done through Spirit of 76. It was ruled by our attorneys and bond counsel that it needed to be separated out from the debt service fund. So that's why we ended up placing it. The only logical place we could put it was in the EDC fund then next. And after a long discussion with the auditors, bond counsel, and council, the final determination was that it would rest, and the bond payments and the rent goes into the EDC fund for that. In 2016, we will be taking in, I think it's in the neighborhood of 30 to 40,000 a year more in rent than we are in payout, which is also good news.
Yes. Thank you.
I guess my concern about taking it all from the EDC is, well, what if a company comes along and then we've lost another 10 grand that we could have put towards maybe getting them here? I would rather take it from the general fund if it's me to do that.
Other comments?
The only thing that I was sitting here thinking about, I'm not sure where the 10,000 amount came from, but whenever, and I don't know what it costs to do a title search. And if we've got that much land and we had to do title search on all of them, just
Well-
wondering about that.
Are they charging
Hasn't most
us?
of that been done?
Yes. Well, they will,
Title costs
when the
you pay
property
for the time
transfers.
they actually sell lots.
yeah.
And that's
when they sell
assessed
lots.
to the buyer, right?
Not always.
That's
Can
ne-
be.
That's
typically,
negotiable.
typically the seller pays for title insurance, but it's completely,
It depends on what
that's
price you sell
typical.
for.
It's typical, but that's completely negotiable. So,
What I'm asking for right now is 10,000 to get us started. I didn't want to ask for 40,000 if I didn't need it, and if we need to come back. What this is really going to pay for is the mowings of the right-of-ways of this land. We can't expect us to enforce our own code if we don't do it ourselves, and that's empty lots. They have to, at very minimum, when we blight them to mow the first 8 feet. And so we have to continue to mow the right-of-ways on the land bank land. We've already gotten complaints.
We've been doing that for several years now anyway,
Yes, and it's been
right?
coming out of the street fund.
Okay, all right.
And this is where the land bank owns it, and it'll come out of the land bank money. And to market these and to put out the bids, we'll need advertising money for the newspapers and wherever we need to send notices out. That takes a few dollars. And if should we get towards the end of the summer and we need more money, I'd rather come back rather than take too much out of the general fund. Not that the land bank couldn't give it back to the general fund, they could. But it was just simpler to ask for a little bit at a time, and you will get an accounting of what the money is spent on as we go. But this is a start to get that fund started, because I do have a mowing bill that will be due within the next 2 weeks.
Well, I think that the mayor, Your Honor, making comment on option 2 and Commissioner Landis making a comment on number 1, I was in agreement with both. I'm actually going to go back to 3 and just split the option 50-50 and take some from each fund. That's me for my comment.
I gave you too many options, didn't I?
But my thoughts on it would be to make a motion to fund it with $10,000 from the general fund from the grant match line of $40,000.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Aye. 3-2.
Thank you.
Approval. Okay, next item F, consideration and approval of award of bid, Department of Public Works, Water Operations, Supplies, and Materials.
Yes, Mayor and City Commissioners, you have a recommendation from staff to award a bid. This is for the Utility Division, which is part of the Department of Public Works. This is for their water supply parts and materials that they use predominantly for the meter installations. However, there are some valves, some pipe components that are included as far as within this bid. I handed out an enlarged sheet of this bid. I have to tell you,
over the last several weeks, having looked at a lot of budget numbers and even this bid item. Unfortunately, about 2/3 of the way down, there is a typo in the bid tabulation, and I apologize that I just caught it this evening. For those that want to know where it's actually at, if you were to look down, like I said, 2/3 of the way down, you'll see these 3/4 inch by 3 inch or 4 inch or 4.5 inch nipple pieces. It's basically a brass piece that's used in the assemblage of the water meter. And you'll see in the low bid for HD Supply, cost in the range of like $84 to $109. Those are actually a $4 unit. And so if the commission does approve the recommendation of the award to HD Supplies, we'd recommend the bid amount be for an amount not to exceed $69,489.22. So that number would be $69,489.22. So I apologize for that typo. They still are the low bid on as far as this this overall program. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on this.
To me, it looked like you did your homework, and that was a good call.
Early in the year, we passed a supplies contract to HDR as well. For
HDR Supplies?
Same
No,
material?
No.
It was last
No,
year
not that
then?
I'm aware of. Actually, we used Salina Supplies last year for this same procurement. However, this is much more thorough. Pretty happy about what staff has undertaken here, is we've had an opportunity to finally go through in detail our water supply building. That's the first building you see up there along K57. It's a tan-colored building. It's got literally hundreds of parts that are in there, and many of them there are probably 30, 40 years old, and we finally got our arms around what do we have, what do we need, what are our typical needs based on using Cartograph Work Director. We've helped, that's what you see, the far column on the left is really a inventory type number that as we've worked through, we're getting a feel of what do we need on an annual basis to be able to accommodate the new meters, the meter changeouts, some of the water main breaks, some of the valve issues that we have, and also trying to keep some minimal, and I stress, minimal supply on hand. We're trying to keep some fittings, some valves, some sections of pipe, so that in the event that we do have some of these typical breaks, and hopefully you've noticed that, our staff have been able to react very quickly on some of these breaks when we get the mains isolated. That's been our biggest issue, is trying to get that isolated first so that we can get in there and basically do the work. So I know it's a lot of items, but there are a lot of items that are undertaken.
And you say we have a surplus of stuff that we don't
We-
use?
We actually have a surplus of some material that we're not going to be able to use. We will be scrapping that.
Can you possibly sell it back?
Pardon?
Can you possibly sell it back?
No, because some of it is obsolete
Okay.
materials. We don't even use it. Some of it we're going to keep on hand because we still have some of those in our system. Some of the valves, some of the older hydrants. So we'll keep some of that material on hand. We're trying to minimize the number of types of valves, and I'm referring to the manufacturers,
Exactly.
as well as the number of hydrants that we have within our system, so that we can keep a very small amount on hand, but enough on hand that if we do have, say, 1 or 2 breaks in a day, we can accommodate that. And we have had situations where we've had, I believe, 3 or 4 breaks in a day, unfortunately. Not too often. I think we've had it once,
No, we're good. Don't warehouse a whole bunch of stuff we don't use.
right?
All right.
When he surpluses, if they were bought out of water funds, the money goes back to the water fund.
Correct.
Right, correct.
Is there a lot of money in scrap metal, or is, I didn't think so.
Comes and goes.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Some of it, it's not real heavy stuff. It's brass, but it's not a lot of weight total.
One of the real downsides of utilities is just the fact that we have to be prepared for not the worst case scenario before bad days.
Sure.
And people don't want to wait. The downside, of course, is just through change of times, it's going to happen. I mean, if you had other utilities, it'd be even worse. In a situation like this, and I don't know how many different sizes of pipe we have in this town.
Several.
I'm sure we have everything from 2 inch
About
up to.
6 different.
Yeah, I mean,
different
and
varieties.
that's just part of the being the city, and you know, the only thing and this is probably gonna be more in budget discussion, is, you know, and I have no real issue with paying $40,000 out of main supply and $35,000 out of the capital. You know, we need to get our determination, move through the budget, you know, what's capital and what's this, and just some numbers, but, you know, it's all out of water funds, so I'm cool with that, but that may be a discussion for another day, is how we maybe divide that a little differently. Because I'm not sure if this is really capital or not, or is it short-term, but the point is, it's all water funds, so we're okay.
Right, and that's correct, as the city manager indicated, that the
Some-
larger items, we traditionally have tried to steer those towards capital. When we get into purchasing a valve that's a couple $1,000s or several thousand.
Further comment?
Nothing here.
I would move to approve the award of bid for purchase of the city's annual water supplies and materials from HD Supply Company of McPherson, Kansas, for an amount not to exceed $69,489.22, as presented.
Excuse me, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is consideration and approval of professional engineering services for sanitary sewer relocation design as part of the US 77 K18 interchange. Call Valley Engineering.
Yes, Mayor and City Commissioners, you have a drawing that I've enlarged. It's 11 by 17. It looks like this. I guess what I'd ask you to do is the larger, call it balloon portion, put that at the bottom, so the top of the page would be north. So you want to have it upright, like in this fashion. There's several colors that are on this drawing. What we're actually looking, or being asked to do through KDOT, is to relocate 2 sanitary sewers that currently cross underneath US 77, and those are marked in green. And so you're going to see one of them. I'm just going to sort of highlight it so you can sort of grab where it's at. But it'll be about 2/3 of the way down. You'll see a green line going right in this direction. You likewise will see another green line that is up further at the top of the page. The intent is to combine those 2 green lines into one red line, which is up here. Okay, so sort of follow my finger along this drawing.
Good.
Is to combine it into just one crossing and move the sanitary sewer further north out from the impact area of, I'm going to call it the interchange project. By doing this, we'll minimize the depth of the sanitary sewers, which is the one closest to K18. My understanding, if we were to proceed with the K18 project, that sewer would end up somewhere in the range around 30 to 40 feet in depth. Makes it almost, I want to say, very difficult for us to be able to do any kind of maintenance, if at all.
Exactly.
The other concern would be the amount of fill over the top of that pipe. Would it indeed be able to support bearing-wise? My understanding geologically here is there's quite a bit of rock. I can't say for certain whether those other ones were jack and board, but my understanding initially in talking with some of the KDOT staff and also with Leon Osborne, and I've asked Leon to be here this evening. He's got a little bit more detail on this as well, because his firm has been engaged with Burns and McDonald on a lot of the preliminary construction on some of these projects, and so he's got quite a bit more institutional knowledge. But if there are any questions that he may be able to answer that I myself am not able to. Included in your packet was a preliminary cost estimate of this project. That's the construction cost. as far as for the sanitary sewer itself. This cost estimate was generated by KDOT. Another component of this project will ultimately be a cost-sharing aspect. So as we look at these two sanitary sewers that have to be relocated, combined into one, we have a preliminary number right now, and I say this is preliminary because there's not been a lot of detailed design other than this, we call it preliminary sketch that you have before you, is a cost participation agreement. And I outlined to you in the second paragraph of the report that there would be a potential cost-sharing agreement of KDOT picking up roughly around 63% of this cost, and then the city would be responsible for 37%. The way that this works is that our utilities are located in their right-of-way. Because of our population of our community, size of our community, we are responsible to relocate the sanitary sewer out of their right-of-way. However, we also have an existing easement that is immediately adjacent to the KDOT right-of-way. They are agreeing to pay for that portion of the sanitary sewer project. So that's where that 60, if you want to call it 63%, 37% split comes from. What that means is if we were to look at, and they're looking at splitting this cost for the engineering design, the construction, and the construction engineering, which would be the inspection. We won't know those numbers until we get more detailed into this actual design. As you recall, we have a general engineering contract with HDR Engineering. Call Valley is a sub of that. That's why we went to Call Valley directly and requested them to provide us a design proposal. So there was no need for us to go on out for competitive bids. We've already done that, and we've got we're still under a 3-year contract with HDR and Call Valley being part of that. You have included a proposal in your packet this evening, which is what we're staff requesting your approval on, is to retain Call Valley for the design services of this portion of this project. As we get more detailed information, I would anticipate that an agreement as far as cost participation agreement would be forthcoming before you between the city and, between KDOT and the city for this project. It is very time sensitive, this particular project. KDOT is looking as far as to, once they get completed with these, I want to say, the undertakings this summer, and have several of the other smaller projects completed along 77 here, they're going to want to be starting to get involved as far as in bid letting of this K-18 and moving forward with the K-18 interchange project. And we need to make sure that our project is bid, constructed, and we're out of the way as far as of their project before they actually look to be awarding as far as this particular work in the near future. And that's why we're bringing it before you this evening. We have had some preliminary discussions with KDOT on this, and we assured them that we would move as best we could, and we'd be engaging them once we had more information. So with that, I'd be happy to maybe try to answer any questions you may have, and I believe Leon, if I'm not able to, will be able to maybe chime in.
The 63% KDOT pay, I think, is a good number, and however that worked out, kudos. Because when he talked about population size, KDOT's policy is towns over 2,500 have to pay for moving up their utilities when they're in the state right away if they move the project. So it's not like we're just barely there. I mean, so I think working out and making the project work is a savings to us.
2,500 or 25,000?
2,500. I mean, so yeah, it's a town of 2,500. If you have to move, or more, 2,500 or more, if you have to move a utility because of a KDOT project, it's all on the city. It's under 25. I think that's still a number. I'm pretty sure. And so like I said, to get roughly two-thirds participation in the way it's all worked out, good job.
And we've had some preliminary discussions. We think this is I don't want to put my neck out there, but I think this is probably a worst-case scenario. in my conversations briefly with Leon, a little bit more on this, is that number could improve our way more so once we get into a more detailed design. But this is based on the information that we have today.
I mean, a third's still a lot of money, but
Oh, it is. It's good.
the project needs to happen.
Better approve it before they change their minds.
I agree.
Get it done.
I just have one question, and I got hung up on it, and excuse me for if I stepped on someone. The 30 to 40 feet depth, we're not going that deep if we approve it and move it correctly?
Correct.
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, you still, there still will be a section of line that runs north and south that will be 30-foot deep. Fact is, it's just a line. The manholes will not be, so the access to the line will be there. KDOT right now is planning on taking off the top of that hill. If they don't take the hill off, we're 60 feet deep. But they need borrow material badly on this project for this intersection. They were trying to get it into what's bidding next week, it is, or 2 weeks, to get in there so they could steal dirt there, but we're still gonna be in 30-foot deep. And we probably will end up having to bore a piece of this other, that's not going under 77. And that's why the price is still gonna be fluctuating here. And that's, again, that's gonna be back on KDOT because it's not under their right-of-way, their existing right-of-way.
Okay.
And that's what we gotta do, is go through the motions here and look and see what is their existing right-of-way, not what the new right-of-way is. And that's what's gonna determine that 60-30, 60-40 split or whatever.
That's
But there's
major
gonna
construction.
still be a piece of sewer, it's gonna be fairly deep.
That's just major construction. And I look at the 10 to 15, 20 feet, that's deep.
Yeah.
But we're going 30 to 40.
And this is gonna take a sizable machine, and
Yeah.
there's only a couple contractors that I know can handle this project, they're not around here.
And that price covers this 20 or 30 to 40 feet?
Yes.
And all the drilling, they,
No, that's still an estimate. That's still an
It's an
estimate.
estimate, yeah, it's not the final numbers yet until we actually get some plan profiles. And I'm gonna be talking to the big contractors and getting some direct feedback from them. I'm not gonna ask them, you can tell me what you think's gonna be, make it high, because I don't wanna know what their bid is.
exactly.
But give us a real understanding of what we're looking at.
Okay,
This is not a simple project.
This is the engineering to get started.
exactly.
Was there?
The 900,000.
And again, this project has to be done by the first of the year. Otherwise, they will not let K-18 they want 6 months from this job. And we're not the only ones out there. Kansas Gas has got $1 million relocation for their gas line. That KDOT's gonna be picking up some expenses. CenturyLink's got
We just
2
had
or 3
Westar.
fibers going through there, so it's a very expensive intersection.
Okay. Thank you, Leon. Mr. Osborne.
Do you have a question?
Going forward, you know, I see the design, engineering, construction, inspection, and contingencies are estimated at 250,000. I just want to be real clear on those inspection services and contingency.
There's a 20% contingency on this project, the 900,000 right now,
Right.
combined.
26%, right.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but inspection costs can really creep up.
I think we have 11% right now into this project. That's why when you take that 250 and so you've got the inspection, the engineering inspection and the contingencies are that 250. Not having enough detailed information, that's why you've got a contingency so high.
Understood. Understood. Okay. Further comment?
Nothing here.
No? What is the will of the commission?
I move to approve the award of bid for the professional services proposal to Call Valley Engineering in an amount not to exceed $36,223.00. Design services of the US 77 K-18 interchange sanitary sewer relocation project.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, item H, consideration and approval award of bid for 2015 street maintenance program, milling and overlay program.
Yes, Mayor and City Commissioners. I also gave you an enlarged copy of the city's 2015 map. You've seen this before. This particular project are those items that are highlighted in red on this map. We also gave you a copy of the bid tabulation. This bid tabulation only has one bidder, it is Bayer Construction. So it's an 11 by 17 sheet. And then likewise, we gave you an 8.5 by 11 of the overall summary of those, calling out specifically those street projects that will be included in the mill and overlay program for this coming year. And those are the ones that are at the very top of that 8.5 by 11 sheet, and it looks like this. So you have an 8.5 by 11 of this that would go along with that map. I'd like to point out to the City Commission, we continue to direct solicit for the construction projects that the city puts out for bid. Unfortunately, we only received one bid. It was from Bayer Construction. However, the unit prices that were provided by Bayer Construction, we feel are very representative of what we had received in the past. And therefore, that's why the recommendation is before you this evening to recommend awarding as far as the contract as you have it before you. Should you approve it, it's our expectations that they would begin this project within the next few weeks after construction documents are pulled together. We're anxious to get them as far as out there and get the project completed as well. So with that, I'd be happy to maybe answer any questions you might have on this particular project.
Do you have any ideas, or there's a bit of savings there, and if that savings comes through, is there any other projects that we're looking at with the savings?
What do you mean by savings on?
What you had allocated and what Bayer came in at was under?
Right,
So that gives us a little leadway to do some other projects or five?
right.
You have concrete stuff too.
Yeah, we had to pay for engineering too.
Right. In the street maintenance program, we cover the engineering design for both the milling and overlaying, which is the construction documents that we have Call Valley put together. This is an example of one of those. And also, we do the concrete patching as well as, and you'll have this before you this evening, is the construction engineering. So there's four really components that are included in that. As we're able to, as you recall, the last 2 years, as we get near towards the completion of these projects, and we find that the actual quantities that are used out in the field, if we find that there's money still out there, we definitely will try to pull other projects into it, as we did the last 2 years.
Okay, I probably didn't explain myself well because everybody's jumping in there. You had a bid amount of X number of dollars. It says here, construction materials of $748,000, which
Correct.
came in less than what you had projected. So my question back again is if we came in under what we projected with engineering included, because I'm taking it all that's included in there, are we not saving a couple of dollars, or are we spending every
No,
one?
here's what you have. You have basically $1 million budget for street repairs, right? Give or take.
Plus, yes.
Yeah, $1
yes.
million, okay?
Okay.
This 900 some was the engineer's estimate. Call Valley estimate the project cost this. If the bid would have came in at 93,409, we might have not been able to afford the whole package of everything.
We'd have taken.
We'd have had to take partials out then. So we only have one bid of 748 from Bayer, and 748. The other is the engineer estimate. It was not part of the budget process, because if the low bid would have been 932,000, and then you add the other low bids in there, plus engineer costs and everything else, we wouldn't have had the budget available. What we're able to do with what I feel is a very competitive bid too, I'll agree with the engineers on this here, a competitive bid is it allows us to do the complete package as well as other things, and not have to sit here and go, Greg and Leon, we have to pull out $100,000, so we take out units, and we don't have to do that, so that's a good thing. So, like I said, this was not the budget number here, this was strictly, Call Valley says, here's our engineer's estimate, and luckily they're above that, so we can do more work.
That's what I was kind of asking.
Okay.
Do more work.
No, we can do the whole project, plus, because we also have this here, on the next page, we're going to talk about the concrete.
Patch.
Patching. I think we can do almost everything now.
Okay.
Whereas if the bid would have came at 932,
Couldn't have done.
we would have had said, we can't afford 932. We don't have the budget for it, we don't have the money for it. We'd have had to take in these numbers and worked with the two engineers saying, we'll have to take out Clay to Webster, or whatever the case would be. I think we're comfortable in saying that we can do the whole project, which is a good thing.
Correct.
Two added together is 989,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus engineering, so we're about at our million right now.
Yeah.
Now, if some of the patching units end up being less, like they did last year, they discover in the field, instead of needing 100 square yards, then they only use 75, and then that extra can be spent later.
Okay, that's pretty much what I was asking. If
Well,
we save some,
And
do we have
likewise.
intentions for it?
And likewise, also, Commissioner Sands, is when we do the project, the engineer estimate for, let's say Eisenhower Garfield was 485 tons. If it comes in at 450 tons, we pay for 450.
Okay.
So, and then we change order for that to our credit. Likewise, if the engineer is low and it's 500, which probably doesn't happen that often, because it's always going to be the other way. So, I think these are great numbers and great work by everybody.
I wanted to note too, in this bid tab, at the very bottom of the page, or the bottom quarter, if you recall, we came to you and mentioned that we were going to include the Spring Valley Road portion over near the Strauss Boulevard, and that's over near the call center. There's a large portion of that pavement that unfortunately, when we had that major water main break, it basically lifted 2 lanes of that roadway for a length of 80 to 100 feet, and it lifted it, unfortunately, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches and separated it from the gravel base. So over time, that will just crumble apart. It won't just settle back down. And so that's included in this project to basically remove and then replace that segment of road. We did put in some temporary coal patch across those utility cuts, and Public Works was able to complete the concrete work on Strauss Boulevard, but this is to finish out that asphalt piece.
So that marker is in the wrong place. I went and looked at it today, and my question was going to be, why are we, or is that concrete patch?
No, this is actually the asphalt portion. We don't have the right equipment to go in and properly repair that piece of Spring Valley Road near Strauss Boulevard. We replaced the utility cuts with some cold patch.
Right.
It's held up, but what we really need to do is reestablish those utility cuts as well as the piece that is south of that. And as you go by, and if you ever do look at it before they get there, you'll see along the curb edge that it's up about 1.5 inches.
Okay, it's raised.
Along there, it's
I did see
raised.
that. Okay,
So that is included in this.
okay, and that's a mill and overlay.
Right. We
Remove
basically
the
will be we basically are removing all of that
Okay.
material.
Okay. What is the will of the commission?
I move to approve the award of bid for the bituminous asphalt milling and overlay of the 2015 street maintenance program in the amount not to exceed $748,069.70 to Buyer Construction Company, Inc., Manhattan, Kansas, as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now we have item I, consideration and approval, award of bid, 2015 street maintenance program, concrete patching.
Yes, Mayor and City Commissioners, you also have an enlarged copy of this bid tab. This one, fortunately, we were able to receive 2 bids for this project, so that's a good sign. As presented in this report, our recommendation is to award it to T&M Concrete. One item that I'd like to note to your attention in this is we included, in order to take advantage of the bidding of this project and the unit pricing, we also included the removal and replacement of the Fire Station Number 1 driveway right out here as part of that project. In discussion with the fire chief, they do have adequate dollars budgeted for that replacement, and it's actually item number 5 in the bid tab. Our recommendation is to include that as part of this overall project for award of bid. And I'd like to note as well that many of these are valley gutter replacements. And as in the past, as we get closer towards I want to say it, finalizing these projects, we likely would be bringing back to you, hopefully, maybe additional areas that we have concrete repairs as far as throughout the city. So we want to take advantage of the monies that are budgeted, but we surely, we have more needs out there than, I guess, dollars. So to get back to your question, Commissioner Sands, do we see a savings? Yes, the engineers has an opinion of cost, and we get bids that come in. And surely, if there's any kind of savings in the square yards and we've got dollars still left over, we want to try to get in there and do more if we can.
And you have a list of projects?
We have a bountiful list of projects to add on to the program.
So we're recommending that the concrete driveway for the fire department would not be paid for out of the street dollars?
It would not be paid out of the street fund.
Part of the project.
But it's part of the project. It's part of the bid. We're taking advantage of the pricing.
Makes great sense.
Is what we're doing.
They have some money in their budget for that.
Why do you think our engineering cost was below what we actually got for bids? How did that get under?
I can't really say. I can't really, I know there's not a lot of, I want to say there's not a lot of KDOT work out there because they're cutting back. I know we have work going on in 77, but their maintenance work is significantly cut back.
So they're higher?
I think it's really subject as far as to what they've seen unit pricing in other communities versus what we've seen in the past in our community, and then really I think what the contractors are seeing. This particular contractor, T&M Concrete, has done, I believe, 2 of our 4 that I've been involved in on concrete patching. So I think they've got in my opinion, probably a pretty good idea what the square yard cost is for different items, particularly when they get into the valley gutter areas, as far as what we're looking for.
Okay.
At what point do we stop and say, how do I put this delicately? At what point do we think that the bid is unbalanced and we go back out for rebid? Is it 12%? Is it 15%? Is it 20%? Or is it just a general?
In my professional opinion, I'd say between 5 and 7. I think I would hold true to that. I know Call Valley is using $48 a unit price. I believe we used 52 in-house when we did our analysis, when we were preparing all of these programs as far as for budgeting purposes. And we based that on what our costs were for city projects. Call Valley is representing many communities, not just Junction City, so they probably have even a better cost when they're pulling together their engineer's estimate. So I think that might be driving what their cost is. I would say that if we're within that 5 to 7% cost, this is in my opinion, a very small project, concrete-wise, and I think that has a tendency to drive that up as well. It's patchwork. There's a lot of picking and going. It's not like we're doing mainline work. We had quite a bit of mainline work on Jackson Street last year, and if I recall, the unit prices per square yard were actually less from the contractors for that kind of work. There's a lot of mobilization. You're digging, you're moving down sometimes 6 blocks, to another location.
Well, and that's a much better explanation than, because the street program is still under budget, we recommend approval. So that's why I asked the
Okay.
question.
Sure,
To get
sure.
a little further
Sure,
explanation.
sure, understood.
I'm also concerned about the fire station concrete, the pad. You know, that pad's got some spalled concrete. It's got some joints that have been repaired. That's $28,000 of work that there's an awful lot more potholes that are a whole lot worse than that apron. Is there any thought of repairing those spalled areas with high-strength, high-early concrete as opposed to total replacement of the apron?
Yeah, we've done some repairs, Public Works wise. We've tried a couple of products in there just because of the nature of the way that those joints are spalding. There's also, I can see there's been an attempt to cut out those joints by prior Public Works staff. I can't say when those were done.
Several times over the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you want to be careful when you're dealing with concrete and cutting too small of a, I call it piece out, because all you're doing is just fighting and unraveling. You're better off pulling out large sections. Therefore, you get true compaction along the edge. Because over time, you will get water getting between those joints, and you get minor settlement, and it starts to rock and move, and before you know it, it's popping and cracking, and it's overdue. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, we're going to continue to patch that as it continues to pop and spald. I think Public Works has been out there at least 3 or 4 times. That we use a product that is, it's actually better than a high early type mix. It actually has a polymer in it. You mix it in a 5-gallon pail, and you got limited time to use it, but it's very durable. It's very tacky. It's almost like tacky pothole stuff, and it really sticks with that concrete. And that's one of the biggest things you're trying to get to, is some bonding when you're patching that concrete versus just doing a complete saw out and then dropping in new sections, if you want to call it.
But you patched that 3 times just in the last 2 years.
Correct.
I mean, at what point do you say you've done enough to try to patch?
3 times in the same year.
3 times in the last 2 years, I mean,
Yeah,
you've
kind of move on.
patched quite a bit.
We've had citizens tripping and falling out there.
That's what I was going to say is.
For 30 years.
On the city safety committee, I think it's just important that one way or another it does get taken care of. That way, you know, one injured knee is going to cost more than what that repair would be. Well, it would cost our work comp provider, but it would ultimately cost our pool, so.
I'm just looking at trying to stretch as long and as far as we possibly can.
Agreed.
I know we do that in other places, and maybe not as critical, and a safety issue is very important, especially with the public walking in that area as often as they do. I understand that. Are you putting in 9-inch reinforced concrete because the trucks are bigger? I know the equipment is much heavier than it was 40 years ago. So the design specifications, is that a 9-inch, a 6-inch reinforced, 9-inch
It's a
unreinforced?
7-inch, and the base is being I call it manipulated. It actually is going to get reworked. That's part of the problem with many of the concrete areas that we're replacing, is that we have base failures, not so much did you have concrete failures, you had base failures first, and therefore then the concrete failed. So the good majority of this concrete work will be removing the base below and getting a proper compacted subbase in place. And typically we're removing and replacing between 7 and 12 inches of base. In some areas, we're not having to replace any of the base because it's in very good condition. But when it's saturated, separated, we're pulling out the base material. The other thing that we're trying to do, a lot of this work that is being planned for this year is along Grant Avenue. And is you may notice we've done an awful lot of joint crack sealing on the asphalt portion. What we're trying to do is take care of, we call it, a lot of these concrete blow-ups that have occurred along Grant Avenue, and those are occurring because there is not proper expansion contraction joining along that roadway. And so what they do is with the heat, they're basically just popping up. They create a significant safety traffic hazard. So a lot of this work, at least with this program this year, is to get in there on Grant Avenue and really start to remove and replace some of those failed segments along that roadway.
Okay.
Mr. McCaffrey, I have one question.
Sure.
The first item, under T&M and Bayer Construction, they're both pretty much from Junction City. Why does T&M want to charge us $10,000 for mobilization when he's right here in Junction City?
It's how they basically, as far as their bid, they're looking for the money as far as typically up front to be able to have a startup cost is what we've seen. I know that typically you put provisions in your contract to make sure indeed that they don't escalate that mobilization to an astronomical amount.
Okay.
We generally try to look to make sure that it's something that's reasonable and not way out of normal.
Right. Commissioner, I think you gotta be careful. Don't go line on line per se, because you can go to the next line item and
He's
they're
way over.
$15,000 cheaper on traffic. So it's numbers they put in their bids and work it out. So just worry about total probably more than about line items.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the best answer.
Good, thank you.
Further comment? What is the will of the commission?
I'll make a move to approve the award of bid for the concrete patching of the 2015 street maintenance program in the amount not to exceed $169,896 to T&M Concrete Construction Incorporated, Junction City, Kansas, as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is J, consideration and approval of professional engineering services for inspection services for the 2015 street maintenance program.
Yes, Mayor and City Commissioners, you have a proposal from Call Valley Engineering to provide the inspection services as part of both the asphalt milling and overlaying project as well as the concrete patch project for 2015. Essentially, what this project will entail is them providing oversight. I would suspect is on the major portions of each of these projects will have full-time inspection. However, on many portions of the project, it'll be intermittent inspection, particularly when you're doing minor removal as far as on some of the valley gutters. Surely, we're going to make sure we get some spot elevations and the like as we adjust those. But I think as far as when you get into the mainline pulling of the asphalt, as far as of the milling and overlaying, you'll see full-time as far as inspection, as far as being provided. There is money as far as within the street maintenance program for this. We do budget for this. We look to augment, I guess, the two engineering staff within the engineering department and using as far as typically a consultant to assist in this. Call Valley is part of, again, a overall general engineering contract of HDR Engineering, so that's why indeed we direct solicited a proposal only from Call Valley and not go on out as far as for competitive bids for this work, because we already are under a general engineering contract. That I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
With the 100%, first, is 100% inspection required? And secondly, that's close to $1,000 a day, $900 a day for 82 days of work. Is that amount of inspection warranted?
Well, I think what we're seeing from Call Valley and we've seen in the past is, and again, this would be their 4th year that they'll be undertaking this if it's approved, is with them being local, they've been able to, and they've worked with both of these contractors in the past, so they're familiar with their practices, and they're familiar as far as with what the city's expectations are. I would say that we're likely not going to have full-time inspection on some of the work. I think we're going to have partial inspection. I think there are going to be some portions that we're going to need to have full-time inspection. We're going to want full-time inspection, we the city, to ensure that we get a quality product as far as put back in. And again, this is an amount not to exceed, I guess is the way to look at this. If the contractor, and I believe Bear is going to go a lot faster than what the contract allows. I think they're going to get in and out of here. They're local. They're going to knock our project, I think, right out. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near that time frame on 48 days to be able to complete that work. I think they're going to be something less than that, but again, this is an amount not to exceed. As far as number, likewise, there's testing involved as far as on both of these projects that Call Valley would provide, which is basically the quality control that we'd be looking for on this.
I've got one question for you. How many of these professional services contracts do we have with Call Valley? Because it seems like earlier you mentioned a 3-year contract, and now there's another one. So how many, are they all specific? Obviously, they don't overlap based on the type of service?
3 years ago, come this fall, we went out for a general engineering services contract. And the intent there was to secure a general engineer to help facilitate primarily water and wastewater, but also general engineering services for the city, which included the street maintenance program, be it the design or the inspection, and a number of other projects that may come up from time to time. We've had Call Valley complete the Ninth Street water main replacement. That very well could have been designed and constructed by HDR Engineering, but we felt, because Call Valley is a sub of them underneath their contract, that they're local. Their costs are generally much lower than, say, somebody HDR in completing a project of that size, particularly of a project like this. So the position we've taken underneath this general engineering contract is if we are able to give projects to Call Valley, because again, they are local, we've favored as far as them on that general engineering contract. We've gone to HDR Engineering, advised them that our intent was to use them, and we were not looking for a markup from HDR as far as administratively for Call Valley as one of their subs, and they've agreed as far as to that provision in the contract. There is a provision in that general engineering contract. Surely we can take any project we want away from HDR and we could solicit proposals, but we've not chosen to do that. We surely could do that, though, if the commission willed us to do that henceforward. And again, I noted as far as that's a 3-year contract we have with HDR, and we'll be looking to have some discussions with the city manager about going back out for proposals, again, for a general engineer to move forward as far as on needed assistance, because we're feeling it's not that HDR has not done a good job. It's basically what we had outlined as far as 3 years ago to them, and there's a substantial, at least as we move forward with the water and sewer, we hope a lot of water and sewer work that will be forthcoming, including as far as street work.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments?
I'd move to approve the construction and inspection services proposal with Call Valley Engineering in an amount not to exceed $72,000 for the 2015 Street Maintenance Improvement Program as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Nothing here.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
could I, since in the land bank meeting, we discussed having a meeting on the 15th of the ad hoc committee, and since it was set by motion to have a budget meeting on the 15th of June, I would recommend a motion to postpone that meeting to a later date.
So moved.
Budget meeting.
A budget meeting, yeah, a budget workshop, yeah.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving right along. Commissioner comments and committee reports. Commissioner Landis.
Oh, yeah, already had our land bank discussion, so that will be forthcoming. A few things. The Friends of Rolling Meadows group had a golf tournament on Sunday, and it was very well attended. We had some pretty decent weather and a lot of fun out there. They've raised, to date, they've already raised over $20,000 to pay for a lot of improvements out there that the city just flat can't afford. Wow. So I really like to thank David Kraft and Ray Camphouse and a countless bunch of other people that have put in a lot of time that really enjoy that facility and are putting a lot into it. We greatly appreciate their efforts. On June 12th, the Gary Community Healthcare Foundation will be holding their annual Boots, Chaps, and Cowboy Hats dinner fundraiser out at Smalls Barn on 18 Highway. You can call the Healthcare Foundation officers still interested in going. And the Junction City Brigade is 4-0. They had to cancel the game tonight just because of the rain this morning, but they're going to play a doubleheader now tomorrow night, starting at 5 o'clock. Normally the games are 9 innings, but when they play doubleheaders, they only do 7 innings. So they'll have games that's starting at 5 and 7-ish tomorrow night. So everybody come out. It's a great value. I mean, get in the game for $5. Most beverages are $2 or $3. Hot dogs are cheap. You can take the family there and not bankrupt your savings account. So it's and the baseball is very high quality. Stadium's beautiful. Everything's really great. So I'd really encourage people to go out. I'm very pleased that we're fixing some streets. I love this time of year when we're getting some big projects going. Our city's come so far in being able to pay for things and starting to function as more of a normal city. We realize by all the complaints we get and when we drive around that yes, we have some major issues. And we're well aware of that, and we can only do it a piece at a time, but I appreciate the efforts of the Municipal Services Department, what they're doing, and Call Valley and Bayer and the like around here that are doing their best to improve the city. We greatly appreciate their efforts. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Just a couple of things. I had the opportunity to go to a couple of the real recent Memorial Day events here in Junction City and at Fort Riley, and they were both very well done and well attended by many people of the community as well as at Fort Riley. Also, I was part of the team that got to go out and tour some of the stormwater runoff, and all I can say about that is it was very enlightening, and it's also very educational to be able to get around in the city and get more of a look and a feel of how things are happening or not happening in the city. I got to go last week to the police department's night out. All I can say is that, again, they did a very good job at that, and a lot of the community did come out and supported this event, and it's always good to see our police department putting on this annual event out there. And the last thing I'd like to say is we did make it a point, myself and some of my friends, we went out last week, spent 2.5 hours helping to beautify Junction City by being out picking up trash. So if you're out and about, and I know a lot of people in here also do that as well, please just pick it up, put it in a can, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Sands.
I'm not going to steal all of your fire because I know you have some. This past weekend, they had the Cabela's tournament, so I'm only going to speak briefly about it because I know the mayor was there. The CBB did an excellent job, and being part of the Convention and Visitors Board, they did an excellent job. They were there early, like 4:30 in the morning, making sure the anglers were ready to go. The Cabela's folks, the last day when we were closing it out, I was driving the van, so I got to talk to a lot of the fishermen. But we had fun in that van, and those guys pretty much all said that, we hope we have this tournament here again, and are you going to be driving next time? But everybody out there was an ambassador. The one gentleman the young man that represented the city best, he got a gift card. Him and his brother both did, but the younger brother was seen more by the Cabela's commander, I guess, the person in charge. And so at the last couple of minutes that we were there, he said, I want to talk to you two. And he didn't realize they were brothers, but he says, this guy did real good, and aren't you the older one? He gave them both gift certificates, and bottom line, they were just pleased with everything in Junction City. There was nothing bad they could say. And in 2003, one of the guys was here for the tournament, was in Green Bay, and he said he couldn't wait to get back here for the walleye tournament. And he actually wore that shirt from 2003 up in Green Bay. And our CVB was there, they talked to him, and when he got here, he made it a point to come over and talk to us. But the mayor will talk about it from a different angle. But all of us out there were ambassadors, representing our city, representing our community. But the folks at the CVB, they work so hard, and most of their work is on the weekend. And if you go back into the chamber on Monday morning, they're right there. So I don't know how they do it, but they represent the community well. I want to talk about the 13th. They received a proclamation this evening, and there's several things that are going to be there. That's going to be a community event. It's the Arts in the Park, Juneteenth. There's going to be some music, the sidewalk sale, 7th Street's block, car club from Salina is coming down. They're also having a big deal, so I'm figuring the show they're going to have on the 27th with those same rides and some of the sleds will probably be here on the 13th also. Plus, we have our farmers markets going on. So that day of the 13th, this is truly a community event. It's not diverse. It's not for one race or the other. It's for the communities to come out and be a part of it. And the last thing I want to talk about is YourGov. I can do a lot with YourGov. When people call me and they say, I got a pothole for you to report, the only thing I do is I go over to where they're telling me it's at, I go to my phone, I hit YourGov, it pops up. It gives the people at Public Works the location of where that pothole, the blight, the light that's out, the trash pickup. There's a laundry list of things that you may want done, but it's all there. And then when you get done, you can add a note. When you submit it, it says it's successfully submitted. On our 515 report we get at the end of the week, it says those comments and those submissions are usually taken care of first because they don't have to put up with the phone. They can get it out immediately. So use YourGov, and everybody that continues to call me, all I'm doing is going there. I'm using my smartphone. I'm not calling the city manager, and those things are getting fixed. So I'm gonna have a little name tag up here next time talking about YourGov and how that can help us make the city a better place. Don't make me make the city a better place. This is our city, so get out there, help us make this city a better community, and you can do it through YourGov. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very well. Commissioner Ryan.
I didn't do a whole lot this past 2 weeks. I did attend the Flint Hills Policy Board meeting, and we sent letters of approval for the Junction City Clink application for the mill and overlay of Washington Street from 6th to 17th Street, and also a letter of approval for a project over in Manhattan. Those are the two main items that we took care of. And everybody's covered everything. I think it's left up to you, sir.
Well, and Jim covered most of mine anyway.
You're the last. You're the cleanup.
He's looking at my notes.
You're the cleanup batter.
Okay, the search for a chamber CEO continues. Interviews will be the week of the 8th. We have some candidates that we're going to bring in for the chamber, good candidates. We're going to do some interviews, and hopefully by the end of that week, we have settled in on a new CEO. I wanted to mention that the Eagles Airy 830 convention is this week, 4 through 6 June. There will be over 200 delegates that will be visiting our community. staying in our hotels, at our restaurants, a very good economic boom. And speaking of economic windfalls, Commissioner Sands covered it pretty well. The Cabela's Walleye Tournament was a very good event. There was a lot of good things that were said about the community on a national televised or web streamed, and then it's going to be televised. The entire tournament will be televised and it'll come out sometime in August. But the key was the people that got up on that stage and talked to the television crews, talked about how well they liked Junction City, how folks were so friendly, how they couldn't wait to come back here. It was very good. Connie Hall and her team did an excellent job. And those are the kind of things. There were people in the crowd that said, can we get another tournament here? Everybody enjoyed coming to Junction City and Milford Lake. Can we get another tournament? My answer to that is yes, bring it on. We have one of the finest lakes in the state of Kansas, the largest blue water state in lake in the state of Kansas. So hopefully we get a little more of those. And the economic benefit to our area is great. There's one other thing I wanted to mention, and I put an article in the JC Post about a fire that we had on Spring Valley Road Sunday night. A barbecue grill exploded, did extensive damage to a house there, and my son and I were the first ones that were on the scene. And within 2 minutes, the fire department was there. The fire department started laying fire lines, putting ladders up, setting and doing the things that first responders do. And I kind of sat there, and it's the first time I've ever been able to experience a live action event. And it was impressive. Folks, let me tell you, those guys don't have to talk at each other. They don't have to yell at one another. They don't have to point in directions. They're all scattered in all sorts of directions doing a specific job. They're very well trained. You could tell that they are very well trained. And I want to let people know that because I live in a community that has the greatest fire department, the greatest police department, the greatest public works, and the citizens. The citizens that stop by, 20 or 30 citizens that stop by, all of them were asking, what can we do? Is there anything that we can do? Do we need to do something with traffic? No, police department's got that. Do we need to do anything? What can we do? And they were all parked along Spring Valley Road there, 20 or 30 cars. Finally, it was to the point where, okay, we've got it all taken care of. Police department, fire department said thank you very much, and those folks left. But those strangers had no idea who was in danger, had no idea what had happened, but they stopped to ask if there was anything they could do. That made me feel very good to be in this community because I know that if something happens to you or something happens to me, I have a neighbor to the right and I have a neighbor to the left, and they're going to help. They are there in times of need. I want to thank those citizens. I think they did a super job. Our professionals did a super job, and it just made me feel good to be part of this community. And I better stop because I could go on forever about that. Mr. Dinkle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of issues. Last week, the mayor and I met with County Commissioner Sharon Bennett. We talked about some issues and worked some deals out, which will be getting to future meetings. But we haven't had a city-county meeting for the last 2 months. Of course, in April was postponed because of the legislative event out at the lake, and then last month, of course, was Memorial Day, and then the following day we had our stormwater tour. But we have tentatively, and hopefully this works out, is the 22nd at 5 o'clock. Trying to work in schedules and everybody else, and and probably important this month because there are going to be some budget issues of the connections between city and county. So if that's an issue, if it's not an issue, I'll just go ahead and contact the county clerk and we'll move forward with that. Been watching the state legislature last couple of weeks. Of course, they're still there, day 103, I think it is. Real concerns to us this afternoon out of the clear blue, without any hearings this year, without any budgets being, or any legislation being submitted earlier, there was an amendment submitted by the state senator from Pittsburgh, Kansas, to put tax lids back in place for cities and counties, local units of governments. Don't know where it's going to go. Senator Longbine voted in favor of the amendment, but we're still in the amendment stage yet. There was another amendment that followed that, and I haven't kept up since 6 o'clock tonight, so what all happened in there. Of course, my concern, I contacted both Senator Hawk and Senator Longbine, and Senator Hawk voted against it. I says, why? Because it's not going to solve the state problems. I'll make the argument that this city has a tax lid because each one of you sees a constituent at least once a day, if not more often. And they'll tell you, where the problems are, and I think the communication, but we'll see where that goes and down the road. But following that, legislation, I mean, there's stuff floating out there, and I don't know what the status of it. There was one last week, and again, I don't know if it was an amendment or being attached to a bill or what, that we'll have to allow campaign signs in our right-of-ways. And it's like, and I'm still of the attitude, those are Junction City right-of-ways, and Junction City governing body should decide that. Apparently, we can't. I mean, that may be the issue. So it's just stuff like that,
Safety zone.
safety zones and everything else, but, and I haven't seen the whole bill come out yet, so, and it was amendment or where it's all going to go, so. Yeah, we haven't seen it.
I
but we
haven't
watched-
seen the full bill yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen the full bill, so maybe some provisions in there, but who knows? Just, we're watching the issues on that. As I mentioned in the land bank meeting, the land bank bill is somewheres, and I know our legislative people are watching it, but we're not getting it moved, and so we move forward with everything else, and again, I think having the land bank meeting earlier, the fact is that, we need to get this land sold. We need to get it out there. Dealing with the budget right now, and I think we've moved quite far with staff, at staff level right now. When you take a look at the budget, because my first budget here, when roughly 50% of our mill levy is used for debt service, plus the sales tax, plus transfers, the faster we can get the property moved, the better we'll all be off, and we can do the more street projects and all those other things we can do. I think we've made great progress, but I'd like to speed it up a little bit if we could, and just have to keep working that and keep hand on it. I got a feeling all you commissioners will probably be contacted by a property owner near the airport. There's some items that are parked on city property. Being that the airport, you had the project this year, have a grant to fence part of the airport, and that property is going to have to be moved, and we've explained that, so you may be getting a phone call. If you do, call me, or we can tell you more. We just wanted to at least make you aware of that. It is city-owned property. It's been surveyed as part of the project, so working on that. Also, tomorrow morning, I'm meeting the EDC, Economic Development Council, is having their first committee meeting on the NRP, which is up this fall. And that's something we have to look at, the NRP. We have to make it right for our community and right for the times, and how do you fit in there and make that balance of getting stuff to grow in this community and people to build, but yet create income, so again, we can benefit the whole city as a whole, and hopefully work towards that balance. And that is all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Beatty?
I did remember another property that we spent money on for the, out of the EDC fund, the 617 North Washington, and she did stop by and say that she's making good progress on renovating that building, and I'll get a better update when I go to stop by myself personally to visit with her, and she was going to show me the site, so I'll get you a better report on how far she is. I know her intent is to be open by early fall on the new location, so that was money that's being spent out of that too. I did want to announce for you, because she made it official last week, our HR director is, her husband is military and is moving. So we posted that today to hire a new HR director. Have anybody that's qualified and has some education and training in HR, they are welcome to apply. On the World Wide Web, there is a ton of information, and Chief Brown forwarded it to me today from a website called niche.com that rates towns across the United States and communities. And when you it's a hard website to move around in, but once you figure it out and you move around in it, you get down into Kansas level, and there are 626 cities in Kansas, and they have 7 ratings in Kansas. Junction City is rated in all 7 categories. Junction City, best towns in Kansas, we rank 5th. Towns with the most things to do, we rate 2nd in the state. Best towns to buy a house, we rate 5th in the state. Best towns to raise a family in Kansas, number 10. Best towns in millennials in Kansas, number 3. Safest towns in Kansas, number 27. Towns for best public schools, number 16. I think that means we're a really good city to live in, because we are rated. There are, in this same list, when I speak of neighbors to our right and to our left, Manhattan is only rated in one of those that are the ratings that are showing up on the website. And Abilene is rated in all of them, but when you compare the rating, we're still even better than Abilene. So we rank.
That's why you're moving.
That's why I moved.
They just tell there, it's all you bear. So,
Because I came over here.
this goes back to what we said 4 years ago when Jerry Vernon and I came here, that it was our job to make this city a better place to live. And I think everybody's hard work goes to show that we are getting there. Yes, it's slow baby steps, but we are getting there, and this city is a good city, and it will continue to be a good city because you have good people working for you. And we're very excited to report that we found this, and it shows that other people in the United States think that Junction City is a good place.
I think the overall rating, what I read, was out of those 626 cities in the state of Kansas, Junction City was rated 10 as one of the most desirable places to move to. So that is really good.
Yeah.
And that's a national publication.
Yes, this is a good for EDC to be able to share this information with outsiders, and it makes us feel good that others, other than Junction City residents themselves, we all know it's a good place to live. But in Kansas and throughout the United States, recognize that we are doing things the right way, and we are moving forward, and we're getting things done.
Ooh. Is that it?
Yeah, that's for me.
And that was good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good news to report for a change.
Yes. Mr. Ficken.
I have nothing to share.
Okay.
I want to thank you for taking my turn at driving, too.
Oh,
You did a great job.
Mr. Mayor, I have one quick thing. The Geary Community Hospital will be holding their first farmers market this Thursday from 4 to 7. So come out. They're a lot of fun. It's going to be even bigger this year. Thank you.
It's a cool farmer's market.
You have another
I
item?
do. Real quick. Something to do on the 13th. I'm not in live roller derby, but if you didn't know it, our Spin City on the 13th is having a live roller derby. It's the Stone Cold Foxes will host the Veteran City Rollers in their second home bout of the season. So it starts, doors open at 6:15. So if you want to go and check out, the Spin City and some live roller derby, it might be a fun time.
I guess it's a really fun thing to watch.
Oh, yeah. They used to practice here, and I ran into one of those ladies at roller.
Did it hurt?
Literally? Solid. Yeah.
So there are things to do in our town.
Oh, there are lots of things to do. Rank
Great.
number 2 in that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Logan.
I don't have anything else to report.
Chief Brown.
No, sir, thank you.
Chief Royce.
Sir, I do have one thing, and I appreciate the kind comments. I'll relay those to crews that were working that night. Just an update on your 515, I sent Thursday, we had two major mechanical issues with ambulances. We were down to 2 ambulances. We made contact with Riley County. They were out of their reserves. Fort Riley had no reserves. We even contacted our dealer. Usually they have loaners. We were set to go get it in Missouri. All their loaners were out. Gary Burgess came to us, said he had a repurposed ambulance, brought it over. We retrofitted it. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to give Gary kudos and let everyone know that the county and city work together immensely on the emergency services, and we couldn't have done it without it. And we are utilizing one of their repurposed ambulances as a reserve until we do get ours back up to speed. So I'd like to thank Gary and the emergency management people for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chief. Mr. McCafferty.
Nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gurman.
Nothing this evening, sir. I was going to do it in German.
Ich spreche Deutsch, so viel.
Ich haben Sie, Bürgermeister.
Ja, ich bin der Bürgermeister, ja.
Mr. Year out. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second?
Have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? We are adjourned.
There's no further discussion.
No further